Ethan Cole wasn't just another man in New York City. He was one of the youngest billionaires in the country, sharp, focused, and feared in the business world. His schedule was usually packed from sunrise to midnight, filled with meetings, flights, and parties that were more about power than pleasure. But tonight was different. For the first time in months, Ethan decided to come home early. It wasn't planned. A last-minute deal had wrapped up faster than expected, and instead of going out to celebrate with his partners, he told his driver to take him straight home. There was a certain excitement in his chest as the city lights blurred past the window. Maybe tonight he could finally surprise his wife, Lily. Lily was beautiful, warm, and elegant, the kind of woman everyone noticed when she entered a room. She had stood by Ethan in his early years, before the billions, before the headlines, but lately something about her seemed distant. She smiled less, her phone buzzed more, and conversations between them felt shorter, like pieces of what they used to have. As the black car rolled into the driveway of his enormous mansion on the Upper East Side, Ethan stepped out quietly. The night air was cool, and the house looked unusually bright. Several lights were on. He frowned. Lily usually kept things dim when she was home alone. He didn't call out her name as he entered. Instead, he set his briefcase down slowly and loosened his tie. A strange sound drifted from the living room. Not laughter exactly, but voices. Two voices. One was Lily's. The other, deep, unfamiliar. Ethan's heart tightened. He walked closer, his polished shoes silent against the marble floor. With each step, the voices grew clearer. Lily's tone was soft, almost nervous. The man's voice was calm, confident. Ethan stopped at the doorway. His pulse thundered in his ears. He couldn't see the whole room yet, but in just one more step, everything in his life was about to change. Ethan's hand tightened on the edge of the doorway. He leaned forward, and the sight that met his eyes froze him where he stood. There, on the velvet couch he had imported from Italy, sat Lily, his wife, her face inches away from a man Ethan had never seen before. The stranger was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with a kind of relaxed confidence Ethan usually associated with men who had nothing to lose. A glass of red wine sat in his hand, while Lily held his delicately, almost nervously. "Lily," the man said in a low tone, "you don't have to be afraid. You deserve more than being left alone in this giant house." Ethan felt a sharp sting in his chest. Left alone? He wanted to storm in, to demand an explanation, but something held him back. Maybe it was disbelief. Maybe it was a cold realization that what he was seeing was real and not some trick of the mind. Lily shifted uncomfortably, setting her glass down on the coffee table. "You shouldn't say that," she whispered. If Ethan what? The man cut in, his eyes narrowing. "He's never here. And when he is, he's thinking about his next deal, not you." The words sliced through Ethan like knives. He wanted to shout that it wasn't true, that everything he did was for her, for them. But instead, he stood hidden, listening, his jaw clenched so hard it ached. Lily lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "It's not that simple. I owe him everything. He's my husband." The man leaned closer, his voice softer now. "You owe him nothing, Lily. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for the role you play in his perfect picture." Ethan's chest burned with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Was this just talk, or had things already gone further than words? His stomach churned at the thought. He stepped back quietly, his mind spinning. Should he confront them now, or wait and gather the truth first? Every second he hesitated. The man's shadow over Lily seemed to grow stronger. One thing was certain. Nothing in Ethan's life would ever be the same after this night. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he backed away from the doorway. For a man who controlled billion-dollar deals with a single signature, he suddenly felt powerless in his own home. He wanted to believe there was an explanation, but the scene he had just witnessed was too raw, too intimate to ignore. He slipped into the hallway, his hands trembling slightly. His mind raced with questions. Who was that man? How long had this been going on? Was Lily truly unhappy, or had he just been blind all along? Determined to know the truth, Ethan pulled out his phone and quietly tapped the security app connected to the cameras installed around the house. His chest tightened when he realized Lily had disabled several of them. Why would she do that unless she had something to hide? Meanwhile, Back in the living room, Lily's voice floated faintly through the air. "You shouldn't be here tonight. It's risky." The man chuckled, unbothered. "That's what makes it exciting. Besides, he never comes home early." Ethan gritted his teeth. The arrogance in the man's tone was unbearable. But instead of barging in, Ethan turned away, moving silently toward his study. If he was going to confront them, he needed more than emotion. He needed leverage. He opened the drawer of his mahogany desk and pulled out a small device, a voice recorder. With steady hands, he placed it near the doorway, just far enough to catch their words without being seen. Minutes dragged on like hours. He heard fragments of their conversation, mentions of secret meetings, hushed confessions of missing each other, and laughter that twisted the knife deeper in his chest. Ethan's knuckles whitened as he pressed his fist against the desk. Rage screamed inside him, demanding release. But another voice, colder and calmer, whispered, "Wait. Gather proof. Strike when they least expect it." When Ethan finally stood, his reflection in the glass window startled him. His eyes were no longer the cool, confident eyes of a billionaire. They were darker, sharper eyes of a man betrayed. And in that moment, Ethan knew, tonight, he would decide whether to fight for his marriage or burn the entire lie to the ground. Ethan stood in the shadows of his study, his fists clenched, his breathing slow and controlled. He had built empires by staying calm under pressure, but this was different. This wasn't a boardroom. This was his life, his home, his wife. The muffled voices from the living room grew louder. The stranger's laugh carried through the halls, bold and unashamed. Ethan's chest tightened. He couldn't take it anymore. He walked back toward the living room, each step echoing softly against the marble floor. When he reached the doorway again, he didn't hide this time. He stepped in. Lily gasped, the color draining from her face as she nearly dropped her wine glass. The man beside her straightened but didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back casually, as if Ethan walking in was just another part of his evening. "Ethan," Lily's voice cracked. "You're home early." Her words twisted the knife deeper. Home early. That was all she had to say? Ethan's eyes locked on the man. "Who are you?" His tone was low, dangerous, the kind of voice he used when enemies underestimated him. The stranger smaked, as if introductions were beneath him. "Name's Adrian." He stood slowly, towering slightly over Ethan, but not enough to intimidate him. "I guess you could call me a friend of Lily's." Ethan's jaw tightened. "A friend? In my house? Drinking my wine? Sitting with my wife?" Lily stepped in quickly, panic in her eyes. "Ethan, please, don't do this. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like." Ethan snapped, his voice rising for the first time. "Then explain it to me, Lily. Explain why you're here with him instead of waiting for me. Explain why the security cameras are off. Explain everything." Silence. Lily's lips trembled, but no words came. Adrian, however, looked entirely too comfortable. "You're a smart man, Ethan," Adrian said smoothly, "but maybe not as smart at home as you are in business. You can't buy loyalty. You can't buy love. And from what I can tell, you lost both a long time ago." Ethan's blood boiled, but beneath the rage was something far more dangerous: resolve. He wasn't going to let this man walk into his life and rewrite the story. Not without a fight. For a long, tense moment, the three of them stood frozen, the billionaire, the wife, and the stranger who had crossed a line Ethan could never ignore. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "Get out." Adrian tilted his head, almost amused. "You sure about that? You throw me out, and you'll never know the whole truth." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "The only truth I see is a man in my house who doesn't belong here." Adrian smirked, but before he could reply, Lily stepped between them, her hands trembling. "Stop, both of you, please." Her eyes darted from Ethan to Adrian, desperate, pleading. "This isn't what you think, Ethan." I was confused." "Confused?" Ethan repeated, the word bit on his tongue. "That's what you call this." He gestured toward Adrian. "You let another man sit in my home, whisper in your ear, and you call it confusion. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. You're never here. You're always working, always somewhere else. I feel like I don't exist in your world anymore. Her words hit harder than Ethan expected. For the first time, the anger inside him clashed with guilt. Had he neglected her without realizing it? Had his obsession with building an empire cost him more than money could ever fix? Adrian saw the hesitation in Ethan's eyes and seized the moment. She needs someone who sees her, Ethan, not just a trophy on your arm. Someone real. That was it. Ethan stepped forward, closing the space between them until he was face to face with Adrian. You think you're real? You think sliding into another man's marriage makes you a better man? His voice was sharp, his presence towering. Adrian's smirk faltered for the first time. Ethan didn't flinch. This ends tonight. You walk out that door and never come back, or I'll make sure you regret the day you ever laid eyes on her. The weight in his voice was undeniable. Ethan wasn't bluffing, and Adrian knew it. Lily stood frozen, her heart pounding, torn between the two men. But one thing was clear. Ethan was done being silent. Adrian's confident mask finally cracked. For the first time that night, he looked uncertain, his eyes flicking from Ethan's unshakable glare to Lily's trembling figure. The air in the room was charged, thick with tension. Fine, Adrian muttered, grabbing his jacket from the couch. But don't fool yourself, Ethan. Money doesn't fix everything. One day, she'll still leave, whether I'm around or not. He brushed past Ethan, his shoulder barely grazing his as he made his way to the door. The sound of it slamming shut echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. Silence followed. Ethan turned slowly toward Lily, his face unreadable. She stood frozen, tears slipping down her cheeks. Ethan, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't. Don't. He cut in sharply. Don't tell me it was nothing. I heard enough. His tone wasn't just angry, it was wounded. Deeply, quietly wounded. She stepped forward, reaching for him, but he moved back. You think I don't see you, he said, his voice rough. I built all of this for us. Every deal, every long night, every sacrifice, it was for you. And the moment I take my eyes off the empire, I come home to this. Her sobs grew harder. I was lonely. I felt like I'd lost you to the world out there. Ethan stared at her, the rage in him cooling into something heavier, disappointment. He shook his head slowly. If you felt alone, you should have told me. You don't fix loneliness by letting someone else in. The weight of his words lingered between them. For the first time, Lily couldn't meet his eyes. Ethan exhaled a long, tired breath. This marriage isn't broken because of him. Lily, it's broken because of the choices you made tonight. And I don't know if I can forgive that. With that, he turned and walked toward the grand staircase, leaving Lily standing in the living room, shaken, broken, and filled with regret. Upstairs, Ethan paused at the door to his study, staring out the massive window at the city skyline. He had always thought betrayal was something that happened to other men, never to him. But now, he knew the truth. The billionaire who once had everything had just lost the one thing he thought was untouchable. And nothing would ever be the same again.